Hello, everyone, and welcome. Over the last number of months, we've hosted a number of sessions that looked at AI and customer engagement. But with the increasing interest in this area and the sheer volume of questions that we've been getting about how to effectively engage with customers using technology, we decided to run a series of webinars that looks in detail at the whole area of customer engagement, the role of channels, AI, machine learning, and live agents, and the roles they play in having positive outcome-driven customer conversations, and also to explain how to maximize the opportunities of adopting a conversational approach to engaging with your customers. So today we're going to start with the secret of getting customers engaged and the vital role that your channels are going to play in that. And let's face it, if you don't know it now, you certainly will by the end of this session. It all starts with your channels. So just before we kick off, a reminder that you can ask questions and that we would always encourage you to do so. So you can get as much value out of this session as you possibly can. So to ask questions, simply click the questions section of your control pane on your screen. We'll endeavour to answer all your questions, but in the event that the clock runs up against us, don't worry, we'll come back to you directly with a response to each and every question. Right, so let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters, Mark Opperman and Graham Bragg from Webio, who have both spent many years helping clients improve how they interact and engage with customers, whilst always adding value to the business and the bottom line. So hello, Graham, and hello, Mark.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Today is all about focusing on sort of bite-sized pieces to allow a proper focus on the constituent parts that are really important for you to improve your collections. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, we have vast experience in this area. We work with a whole range of different clients, some great companies. All of the companies that we work with that we're showing, it's all about collections activity. And really what we focus on is that we have quite a very, very strong metrics focus. We're not just talking about technology for technology's sake. It's all about improving the collections performance, understanding where the metric is today, and obviously moving that metric in the right way. And it would be a case of where that we have done some really interesting and some quite significant uplifts for our clients. So rather than me reading all of them there, if I was just to say that when we are looking at an engagement with a client, as I say, the first thing that we would like to do is sort of benchmark where people are today, so that we can absolutely ensure and drive the metric to the type of improvements that you're seeing there. And some of these metric improvements have been instrumental in the delivery of us Webio winning quite a number of awards over the past 3 years. Again, all of these are in the area of credit and collections, recognizing from a technology point of view and from an innovation and again, that word metrics and improving what the collections performance is. We have, always great to have great customers, but also really nice to get sort of an industry recognition that you're doing a good job. Okay, so getting down to today's focus is channels. So what channels do you need? And to be frank, the choices are nearly bewildering. There are that many today. But again, what we're going to do is look at channels from, say, a macro level, just what is out there. But we're actually then going to really drill down into, say, what you need to be thinking about adding to your business today, because you could get lost in a sea of choice. And one of the things there is that, gosh, is too much choice a bad thing? And really, my answer there to you is that, look, we are all different. So maybe not. That we're all even more demanding nowadays. And expectations now is all consumers are in much more control of the way that they interact with friends, with businesses. So it's a case of where, channel and choice, there is lots of choice out there. But if we were to look at those choices through the lens of, let's say, the different generations that are out there. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the different terms for the different generations that will be out there today. You have your baby boomers, you have your Generation X, and you then have your millennials, or Generation Y. I know, Graham, you laughed at that because it had the obligatory beard on the
He does.
millennials as well. And we are then right up to date with our Generation Z or
Just more worrying though,
Generation
Mark. More
C.
worrying than the beard here. Sorry, is that
Uh-huh.
you wouldn't play poker against someone from Generation X or Generation Z based on those pictures. Let's be honest, they are poker faces.
They are very much poker faces. I will draw in the, but if we were looking through the channels and the choice of channels, naturally, the minute you look at that sort of graphic there, you're immediately probably thinking, gosh, yes, there, each of these different generations are going to have different choices, different ways to communicate. And that really is what we need to think about. That, look, we could give you 20 different channels that you could actually communicate in, but actually today is about going from macro down to micro, not looking at them all, focusing on, say, 2 or 3. Because let me give you an example here. And Graham, you'll know this more than anybody, as I know your kids, as much as mine, are in the Generation Z. But one of the things that they consume more and more today is videos. So the question that I would put to you, and again, the minute I say that, you're probably nodding, you kind of go, yeah, they can't get them off the blooming phone. But on average, per day, how many videos does a Generation Z look at?
Can I just answer that? Far too many. Whoever invented the meme really needs to be shot, I'll tell you that. I have an 18-year-old at university, and it's impossible getting it out of his hand. It really is. But we'll say no more.
Yeah, and the answer actually is 68 videos a day. Now, again, they're through different, getting to them in different formats and different channels and stuff like that. But it just shows you that video content wouldn't be something that you would associate getting your message across. Now, that's the future. That is not today. But from a concept point of view, it plays in really well to when we're going to talk about conversational middleware, that it's a case of where you need to think about future-proofing your needs for your business. What you're doing today needs to be able to grow with your demands as the channels go on. So when you look at it, that you have your business channels, and they're quite limited. You'll have your phone, you'll have your email, you'll have your agents. And again, in the collections world, it's still a huge predominance and a reliance on the phone. But the minute you move into the customer channels, the choice gets to this unlimited landscape that seems to go on forever and would have your head swimming to say where and what and how. So let's look at that. So there's lots of channels out there. And again, I'll throw a few names and a few stats just to, I'm not going to say try to confuse you, but just to give you that complexity that is out there. Viber, for example, a lot of people may have heard of it, but again, 800 million users globally. Instagram, everybody's probably familiar with Instagram. They now have over 1 billion active users. Interestingly, 2 that you may not have heard of, WeChat and ByteDance. Both have over 1 billion. But if we were talking and we were doing business in China today, they would be the channels that we would be getting you to focus on, not the ones that we're going to focus on a little bit later. Again, it's all around the geo and the part of the world that they're in. But interestingly, there's other ones, and I come back to the video ones. Again, weird and wonderful names. TikTok. In 1 year, they got up to over 100 million users, and today they have on their platform over 1 billion videos viewed daily. So it's just really to give you an idea of the scope of channels is vast. So how and what do you need to be thinking of as a business? So really what we're going to do now is let's delve into and take away all that choice and talk about 3 channels for you. So the first one that we're going to talk about is WhatsApp Business. And really, the reason that we're going to start there is that is the busiest by far. But let's look at that, because what I want to do for a moment is just really to demonstrate where, and the relevance of WhatsApp to you. On the green line, you have SMS. SMS peaked about 2011. It's been falling ever since. As you can see, this chart was produced. I found this chart and I thought it would be interesting. This was produced back as far as 2013. So the blue bit on the right hand side, that was the forecasted growth. Okay, so they saw WhatsApp arrive and it take off essentially like a rocket. So it was going to pass out SMS. And actually, then let's look at reality. Very much that is the case. Last year, there was 65 billion messages going through on a daily basis. Now, a message, if I draw your attention to the bottom here, is even if you're sending it to a group of people, and it's 5 people in your group, that's still just one message. So it just shows you the amount of activity that people actually are currently having on their mobile devices on just one channel. So where do we start? And actually, before we even move on, SMS today is still probably an integral part of what you do. And Graham, we see this more than most, where most people are still just using SMS as a blast out to say, ring us on this number. Well, actually, that's where, a huge amount of benefit, moving that into full conversations. What probably would it be at least half the people that we talk to still just blast SMS, Graham?
I'd say when we first initiate with them, for the first, I would say SMS one-way blasting is probably got to be probably higher than half. It's probably 75-80% of people. That's all they're doing. Some people have tapped into maybe a little bit of two-way here and there, but never looked at it in a cleverer way than just doing the same thing they were doing with one-way and letting somebody respond to that over the SMS. So it's an interesting one. I love this sort of customer channel focus piece that you've got there. And the slide you had earlier on with the yogurts, is there too much choice? It's like everything in life, isn't it? It's how you control that. It's as Mark said there earlier, in China you have WeChat and over here you have WhatsApp. And market forces will drive that. If you take from a yogurt perspective, using that analogy, the top 2 brands that advertise heavily and the budget range, that's going to be 85 to 90% of all of the yogurts that you sell. It's the same with these channels. By focusing on those, you've got the real penetration, the coverage that you need. And the good thing is, the others on the shelf, again, using the yogurt analogy because I think it's a good one, it's basically, they're sitting there and sale or return, basically. If they're not being used, you're not paying for them. So it's not an issue. But every time someone pulls one off the shelf, it's making you £10 profit. So it's a good way to view it, and focusing to start with, and then looking at where you go from there.
Yeah, and on that, like if you were to ask any business, I want to do more of something, and where do I go? Where would I go to do that business? Well, I don't think you need to read too many management books to say you probably look to start with the busiest place. And that's certainly in this instance, other than SMS, would be WhatsApp Business. So WhatsApp Business, as we talked about, WhatsApp have opened up the platform, that channel for business, so that you can get a full business API. So it can be a full business capability right across the contact center. That you look at the UK adoption, it's over 90% UK adoption within the marketplace. And again, I come back to that you can't get away from the fact that 65 billion messages a day went through last year. There's more now, but it's at least 40 messages per day for every user. So again, you have phenomenal engagement from people, so you are going to engage with people in the channels there. Now, all of these, and we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but it's for the next in the series. All of these conversations that we're talking about, First off, the challenge is to engage with them, and that's where we're talking about channels. But all of these can then be moved on to automate whatever the channel be, SMS, WhatsApp, the other channels that we're going to talk about today, that you need to be starting to think about in your business. And if I was to give a priority, WhatsApp would be where you should start right now, and then you have RCS and Apple Business Chat would be where I would look at number 2 and 3. So the reason I take them together is that they're sort of going to do the same thing. So it is the next generation of, say, SMS. That if you're using RCS, you're on an Android device. Now, Android would be obviously Google's operating system for mobile. That would be where your Samsung, your LG, your Huawei, the list goes on and on. All of these are using the one operating system, which is Android. That's so 50% of the phones in the UK would be of the Android variety. Slightly different when you go on a global basis, about 80% plus of the phones globally. But you also then look at Apple Business Chat, so your the ones that are operating on an iOS device. 50% of the phones in the UK are Apple. So again, those two channels are coming along to offer you huge levels of functionality. For example, I'll give you one example on all three channels, but again, we're doing this today for a number of our clients in WhatsApp, where they're looking to get information from customers, the likes of, can you send me that form in? Can we confirm that that is the right amount? Can we confirm all of these different things that would have taken a lot longer than before, where now it's simple. The person has taken a picture of the passport, of the document, whatever the case may be, in the conversation, includes it in the conversation, sends it into the agent, and the conversation continues on. So that's just one example of the next level of capability that these channels will give you. But getting the right channels are really important, because this is all about impacting the metrics for you and your business. So I'm going to pick one example: collections area in utilities. The engagement rate increased from 7% to over 35% by simply letting people engage in these channels. The other thing that, Graham, this was one that was one of your clients regarding the hard of hearing. It wasn't something that we immediately thought about. Tell us more about their experiences.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting one, actually. We're always looking to analyze the data and making sure that, the benchmarks that we've got are being increased, and where are people stopping? How can we improve that? And it's just a continuous growth piece, and it's quite amazing. As a customer you're mentioning there, Mark, they got a really early spike of people engaging with them. And these weren't their sort of really delinquent customers. These were just customers that would fall into arrears here and there and so forth. So I'd probably say you're sort of 60-day or earlier form of customer. And when they were sent out as part of the process, a sort of an NPS score and a feedback form and whatever, a lot of people were coming back and saying, you know what, we haven't picked up the phone because we're basically hard of hearing. When somebody calls us, we're never quite sure, and it's a really hard conversation to have because we're not quite sure, and it's difficult for us and so forth. But when you send the message, all of a sudden, I could have a conversation with you. So yeah, I mean, we never saw that coming. As you say, that 11 million people of hard of hearing, and that specific customer, 3% of the uplift they had was purely down to hard of hearing and people that really had trouble speaking verbally on the phone. So yeah, it's a huge win. We never saw it, and there's lots of others since then that we've seen and we're now working with as well as part of the analysis. But yeah, a fantastic win that we never saw.
Absolutely. And again, when you look at and again, this is one on a retail client, that connection, they gained 50% connection with people that they'd failed to get hold of. Again, in the collections arena, that they had sent emails, they'd sent letters. So 50% of the people, this was actually starting on SMS conversations. They've since moved to WhatsApp, and the stats have still been the same. So it's a case of where by allowing conversations to happen over channels, new channels that your customers are more comfortable with, don't be surprised that you will get a lot more conversations than you currently do today. And that's ultimately what it's all about, getting those conversations, getting into those arrangements, or getting a payment, getting a promise to pay, getting that engagement with people. So getting the right channel is, sorry, very good.
I was going to say it's an interesting one. 50% of customers now communicating with, especially in the debt collection market and the FS market, has been a really interesting one. People say, yeah, 50%, come on, really? And it's amazing. We do analyse everything that comes in, everything that goes along. And actually, a lot of those are from people that have just ignored those companies for months, even years. And a lot of them are coming back as aggressive swear words, go away, F off, etc., etc. You'll all know that being in this market area pretty much. What we learned very quickly was that actually is a really good response, because someone who hadn't responded before is now responding. So you know that is the right party connect. Number two, there's a great way using neurolinguistics and way of responding to that actually engages somebody. So what you're finding is, as people are just telling you basically to go away, right party connect. Now, if I say this, the chances are a large percentage of those will respond again, and they then end up going down the route of some form of collection or some form of pattern of process that you wish them to go down. So really been interesting. Again, these are all things we can share with you further down the line.
Absolutely. And that really would be where, typically we look to engage with customers, and it's sort of a best practice that we'd like to deploy with our clients. Again, we've years of experience doing this, and we can bring that to bear. So it's nearly an out of the package, making it really simple for you. So just looking at that, and I sort of touched on this earlier. I'm going to sort of quickly run through this because time-wise and what have you, but this is from a concept point of view. So this is really what you need to be thinking about for your business today, because channels, there is more going to happen over the next number of years. You need to be, and your business needs to be, positioned in a way where you are able to avail of these channels and it's easy. And that's where we see Webio coming in, and more importantly, our conversational middleware. So let me just sort of paint a picture for you. On one side, you have customers. We've touched on it already. They have access to unlimited channels. But again, let's focus on the 2 or 3 that we've mentioned today. But again, future-proofing your need. So Webio sits in the middle. Now, irregardless of the channel that you or your customers want to use, it's either you're reaching out to them or they're reaching in to you. So that secure connection is made into the business. What we can do is that we could start to bring in some of your digital assets. So a simple query, what's my balance? When's my next payment? All these simple things, they actually can be automated. They're relatively easy, relatively straightforward. When it gets a little bit more complex, that's where the agent resource that you have today, that's where that simply and seamlessly blends into the conversation to give a really good experience. The middleware doesn't really stop there. So that's all the channels that you're getting that engagement over the channels. But the other parts would be where the platform itself is that we have our native connections. We hook into 120 global payment service providers. So you can now bring in payments into any conversation in any channel seamlessly, securely, really a good experience for the customer. All the other type of stuff, the likes of Typeform, the likes of Dialogflow, that will be where we're going to sort of touch on the next webinar, where it gets into that automation and the natural language processing. But again, the range of third-party engines to add value to these conversations. Not alone can you actually get engagement, but now you can actually do a lot more in the one conversation. So again, you're capturing the customer and getting their engagement, but also able to complete a full transaction end to end. So that would be from a concept point of view. You need to be thinking about your capability And what we're saying is conversational middleware is where you think needs to be able to manage all that in one place. So in summary, really it's all about the engagement, the control, the cost reduction. Definitely all channels that you want to be able to engage with your customers in. That's something that we as a business would be really focused in on. And also, as I said, we're not going to touch on it today, but that is the reason that we're saying come back to for the next one. Where you're going to automate, where you're going to bring the agent in, and then obviously I've sort of touched on this already, those type form surveys, being able to reduce an I&E call from 20 minutes to 5 minutes. There's lots of things that we are going to talk about in later in the series. But what I'm going to do is, Graham, the slide says what's next. What is next on the series of webinars?
Okay, and there it is. It's speaking for me. The next piece, I think, which is probably the key part, is using the artificial intelligence and the automation using bots and the technology that sits within and behind Webio to ensure that the customer journey doesn't go backwards, and to ensure that the customer gets the best service level that they can get. And that's really about that sort of perfect integration between human and the bots themselves. And there's a lot of sort of cleverness in there. There's a lot of things that have been talked about, as we've already mentioned in a few ways, but it's really going to focus on how you do that well, and the most important parts to look at to make that journey the best it can be.
Great. So look out for that. That will be advertised. It will be on emails going out to you. And really now at this stage, we're going to go back over to Anne-Marie. Questions, Anne-Marie, can you take it from there?
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we've had a good few questions in. Thanks, everybody. So we'll just kick off the first one. Is it realistic for a business to be able to manage so many new channels?
I'll grab that one, Emery, if that's okay. Yeah, it is really. It's one of those things. It's the difference between the way people would be doing it today, where each channel would be in its own silo. Therefore, you have to have different people controlling those things, different bots sitting on them, be very, very complex. Where Webio comes in, it actually does bring all of that together. The whole idea is it shouldn't really matter the amount of channels that you've got. The customer should be able to come to you or respond to you over that channel. Webio will pick that up in one single place and then offer that to the agents or to the bots, again, in one single view. So there's no need for different systems and silos of each of those channels that you'll be using. So it's really about feeding the customers and allowing customers to have the ability to communicate with you the way that you want them to and the way that they want to communicate with you, basically. So yes, it's very simple. The Webio platform will bring everything together and present it in one single place.
Okay, great. Thanks, Graham. On to the next one. In practice, what are the issues you've experienced with your customers in adding other channels?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, I'll take that one indeed. And it's a real sort of question, this one, when it comes to typically what challenges do people have. And all different channels will have maybe different things that you will need to be aware of. For example, I'll give you one of the examples. And again, this would be where we would say, look, we're experts in this area. We're more than happy to help and guide you. But let me give you the example of where, when we moved, one of our, and lots of our clients do this now, would move from sort of phone calls and stuff like that, and they're moving to digital conversations over mobile. And pick a channel. It could be SMS, it could be WhatsApp. It doesn't really matter. But those conversations are now being handled by an agent on the keyboard, sort of typing the messages back and forth. And actually, the customer, they immediately moved their best agents that were on the phone into this new channel, and actually it turned out that they didn't have the typing skills that other people would have in the business. So just even simple things like that, we can help you and give you guidance on where are the common pitfalls that people do. There are some, and as I say, that's why we would say engage with us, and we'd be more than happy to walk you through and essentially talk about what's best practice for you.
Great, thanks a lot there, Mark. Here's a question from Sue. Is there any recommended criteria for which channels to add and when?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You've only really got about 2 to 3 years, and I don't think anybody knew the answer to that. But really, it's coming down to market forces. It's being driven by clients, being driven by the channel providers themselves. There are two things really that matter. The first one is, what is the channel of choice for the customer to start to engage with business? Unless the actual end user wants to engage over that channel, they may see it as a social channel, a friends channel. Really, it's never going to become a huge business channel unless it's driven that way by the actual channel provider. Let's take WhatsApp for an example. WhatsApp, again, we all know is now the latest business channel. It's starting to get real sort of grounding and people are starting to use it quite heavily, and it's working very well. But you've only got to go back 6 months, to a year, and people would have said, wow, what's that? Yeah, people are talking about it, but actually the end user would all have said, well, I talk to my friends on that. But again, that's the way it goes. So really what to follow and what to do is twofold. One, what is the market driving? And two, what are the channels allowing? The good thing about Webio is we're watching that all of the time. And if that channel creates a business API, which generally means they're going to go out and start to use it as a secure channel for business, we will have connected to it, and you'll be able to connect to that yourselves as a company to your clients.
Great, thanks, Graham. Moving on to the next question from Patrick. We use SMS and are happy with it. What would I gain from using WhatsApp or Messenger?
Yeah, great question, Patrick. And that's actually where a lot of our clients probably would find themselves over the past number of months. And really the answer is that, first off, different people will use different channels more commonly. Now, this is not to say that one would replace the other. What we've seen is by adding more channels, you will engage people that you failed to get hold of previously. But let me give you another sort of example where we've seen the added benefit of, for example, WhatsApp, where part of the process that the customer wanted to get some documentation from the end customer, and WhatsApp now allowed them to simply take a picture of the document that they're looking for and to send it into the agent. An immediate verification there on the spot by the agent, and the conversation continued on. That's just one example, but you just purely even look at the volume, and this is something that we've mentioned in the webinar itself. An average user sends 40 messages per day on WhatsApp. That is so much more than sending SMS. So you have somebody's attention, they're in that channel, let's make the most of it. And that would be why we'd say that, that's why you should be using it for your collections activity.
Great, thanks, Mark. The next question is from Kamal. We send SMS messages to customers, but it's just one way. We would like to have inbound responses coming in. Do we need to have a short code to do this?
Okay, I'll grab that one. Again, another good question. The answer is no, you don't. But you also can do. It's really your choice. The idea of a short code is to have something that's memorable and easier for customers to remember, maybe from advertising. Also, people tend to trust messaging a short code back more than they would a long code. So there's that sort of trust issue there as well. So there are some benefits having a short code, but you absolutely don't have to have one. You can use a standard, what we would call a sort of a free long code. So it's like buying a SIM, really. You'd be given a number, and that will be associated with your account, and it would be only associated with your account. So yes, you can, but no, you don't have to. Moving from one way, I'm going to sort of jump on this just a little bit towards the end, to two-way is a big change. And it's often where most of our customers start. They're happy with SMS, they're happy with one way, their contracts cover that. There are some really interesting pieces in there that you have to change when you go to two-way. We won't cover that now, but again, we have another webinar coming up, which I think Mark will mention towards the end, that will cover that off.
Great, thanks, Graham. And finally, we're just going to cap it at this question here, the last question for the day. Where does web chat fit into this? We've just added it.
Yeah, again, this is just another example of adding more channels to make sure that you capture that engagement with customers. Fundamentally, the difference between web chat and web chat is great for most companies when it comes to customer service where it's inbound. Primarily, the activity for collections, there's a lot of outbound activity. That isn't web chat. So, that outbound capability going to somebody's mobile is really where the channels that we're talking about today. Now, that's not to say that, we can link in with web chat, and it would be a case of where that you could start to look at how do you automate some of those conversations. But web chat is very specific for inbound, typically customer service. So what we've seen the real life experience that we've seen, it has had limited real effect when it comes to the collections activity, because more and more of that is about that outbound remindering, outbound trying to that engagement, and then starting those conversations. So again, there's quite a significant difference between web chat, purely inbound, where what we've talked about today were channels that would allow both inbound, but also starting the conversation from initiation from an outbound communication.
Great. Thanks a million, Mark. That's all we have time for today. Again, for any questions that we haven't gotten to, and there are a few, don't worry, we'll be in touch directly with a response. So all that's left for me to do today is to thank you for joining us. I hope you found the session insightful, and it gave you a little bit of a better understanding of how important the channels are as a crucial element in your contact strategy. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, this is the first in a series of sessions that we'll be running. And the next session will take a closer look at how to use AI and automation to get better contact rates, and also look at the importance and the benefits of blending chatbots and live agent activities. So keep an eye on your inbox for more details on that. So finally, if you have any other questions or would like to talk to us in a little bit more detail about what we've covered today, you can contact us on info@webio.com, or you can reach out directly to Mark at mark.opperman@webio.com. So all that's left for me to do today is say thank you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.